And we are now recording. So thank you to everyone for joining us. Today's webinar is the Back to Basics webinar to talk about log entries. Now, let me go ahead and start with my preference for a data disclaimer that we will be using a sandbox server today full of fake students and fake information. So no real student or information is being shared in this. And everything that you see is fake. So anything that is any likeness to any real person is purely coincidental. Now, log entries. Log entries is a very useful piece of PowerSchool SIS. It is used differently in our state versus what some others are. What log entries is the original discipline portion of PowerSchool. So for those users who were years ago starting PowerSchool, incident management didn't exist. So log entries was a page for them to go in and put a lot of their discipline data. And if you go and just Google any kind of information about log entries inside of PowerSchool, you're going to find a lot of references back to discipline. For our state in Alabama, we do not use log entries for discipline. All of our discipline goes into incident management. Log entries, when you first look at it as a student, looks like a discipline record. However, there is a way to reconform the page and turn it into a note-taking feature inside of PowerSchool. So from the time that we implemented PowerSchool back in 2021, I have always advised districts to do some of the changes to log entries to turn it into a note-taking area for your users. So I'm going to go through that process, show how to conform that. Some of you already have, some of you have not, and how to assign the security, how to run reports, how to enter in these log entries. So when we talk about it being a note-taking area, I'll get a call from a counselor and they'll say, Stacy, well, I need a counseling notes area. I need a place where I can put in, that I had a conversation with a student, or I'd have a front office person that says, hey, I want to put notes in on a student who has, truancy issues or things such as that. And that's absolutely what this piece can be used for. So what I want to do is start off by pulling up a student. And I will tell you, for those of you who are on the webinar with me, I highly encourage you to pull up a student to see what your screen looks like compared to mine, because that will tell you if your district has already transformed this area or if you need to get this area transformed for your district. So I'm going to go into Mickey Mouse. And when we pull up Mickey Mouse, in the behavior area is this log entries. And yes, it is tied up under behavior. And you can grant access to the log entries page without granting access to all of the incidents. But because it was an original behavior product inside of there, that's why it's nested in that area. For the way we use it, it doesn't make sense for it to be there, but that's where the core piece of this product has it lie. When I click into log entries, you'll see that I have some that have been entered on our student. I'm going to click new. Now this is where I want you to look to see what your page looks like compared to mine. Notice it is a new log entry area that has a date picker, has the author, so it already tags me as the one putting this in. I have these different log types that I can drop down. I have subtype, which is something that will only show up if discipline is chosen. And notice I don't even have discipline in here. I'll show you why in a little while. I will title it. I will put some text, and then I have some different drop boxes here. Form return, consequences, different things. Now, this is what your page might look like if you have already adjusted your log entry platform. If your log entry platform has not been adjusted, you have quite a bit more coming down this page that talks about actions, behavior, referrals, consequences, incidents. Like, it truly looks like a discipline entry page. When it comes to log entries, there are lots of things to consider in using the log entry feature. Who's going to use it, what they're going to use it for. Now, where do these log entry fields come from? Where do these log entry types come from? Go back to my start page. Notice I am in district management. When I go to, let's go back to district office because I'm at a school. Patrick just asked, will there be a reason my page would be missing the referral and form return checkbox options? Is that important? You're going to see that in just 1 second, Patrick. So when you're in district office, if you will go to district management and under behavior, because again, it's still tied to the original core process of behavior, there are two areas of setup inside of here: log entry fields and log types. Now, when this was first rolled out, discipline was the big log type because it was used for discipline. You can create all different reasons to use this. So you'll notice that some of the log types that I've created that we've just done in conversations with districts and helped them set them up, we set up a social worker log type because we had a district that wanted to be able to put social worker notes and assign those to a specific group of people where only they could see them, because that's the other thing. This ties very heavily to security, where you can give security groups access to only certain log types. So if I'm on a student record and I only have access to social worker log types, even if I have counselor or parent contact or grade change, I don't see any of those on the student when I go to the student record. I can only see and run reports on the type of log types that I'm granted security access to. Another type is nurses notes. Now, I know that we have nurses notes over in the health component, but some people were like, no, I want to also have one over here. So we showed them how to create it. MTSS notes. We created this way before we even had analytics and insights as a way to capture, MTSS data on students. Transcript requests. We had a district that wanted to have an area to denote when transcripts were requested from various areas on a student. Counseling notes. That's one, we used to have it in iNow. We can have it in here. Attendance, parent contact, grade changes, where people could go in and request that a grade change be made on a student through log entries. And then we do have the original discipline in there, even though we don't use it. So you could think of all the different areas and reasons that you might want to have a note-taking area and create a new log type for that. So if I wanted to create a new one, for example, let's say, um, oh my, what would be what's something that one of y'all have come up with that I might not have on here? I'm trying to think of something out of the blue, and my mind is just like mush at this point today. What would be a good one? Um, I'm gonna make up parent note just for some reason. Hit submit. So now I have a log type of parent note that I could use to be able to document something on that if I wanted to. I'm gonna go back into the district management to the behavior, and now I'm gonna go to the log entry fields. Ooh, that's a good one, twin. Address or phone number change requests by parents. Name change. Ooh, that's another good one. Name change that we could do. Now I'm sitting here like going through. Now I'm spinning. Go to the log entry fields. These are the original log entry fields that if you have never changed anything on that page, or all of the discipline data that you see coming down your page. Now, what I did, notice over here there is a sort order. For all of these fields that we do not want to use, there is an option of which order to display these fields in on that page, or you have an option to hide. Well, I don't want to use any of these about discipline and weapons and injury and incident date and incident location, so I hide all of those. But what I do is I keep these at the top. Now, here's the thing about repurposing log entry fields. You can't actually repurpose the field name, but you can repurpose the label and like options inside of there. So for example, the field name of entry date, which is what used to be in there, I just made it say date, time, author. Like this subtype, optional for discipline. Well, if I'm not going to use discipline for any of mine, then I can actually choose to hide this if I wanted to. Oh, my little AI assistant needs to go away. Actually, it's not going to give me the option to hide that one. Oh, that must be why I've never hidden that before, because it's tied to discipline, which is the original. So we could just ignore that one. Subject has now become title. Entry is log entry text. You can repurpose fields. So it will tell you like the kinds of fields that these are, whether they are drop downs, whether they are all kind of different stuff. So this one right here was originally a discipline action taking that was a drop down or a checkbox. You click in the name of the field and it will tell you, okay, this was a pop-up menu. Well, I can't change the name, but I can change the label. So instead of it being a discipline action taken, instead I do a menu because you can do entry boxes, radio buttons, static fields, pop-up menus, and say, nope, I want it to be a pop-up menu and I want these to be the items in that, basically a drop-down menu for. So I'm repurposing for other things that I want to put on this page. So now if I were to choose, MTSS and or grade change and put grade change request and put history grade change from 72 to 80, just to make a note that I went in and did this in historical grades for some reason, updated a grade, I could put that in there, or a request, from a counselor to an admin that an admin would have to come in here and say something to. And if I wanted to put this drop down to say, yes, this was, whatever this was for, and any of these others that I reconformed, I would have those options inside of there. So you can go to any of these fields and repurpose them and rename them to make them become part of that page. And it might be that, okay, I need that field to only be used for, this one type of log entry, but it's going to show on every page. So everything that you build down here from those log entry fields are static and will always be on this page no matter which one of these log types you choose. So if you create, for example, this referral should only be used if entering mental health, because that was one of the things that we used to have as a log entry type was mental health request. A district had it. So if I would say referral and put over there in parentheses, only use with the mental health log entry type. Or if I had form returned and it only needed to be used for grade change, you would just make those kind of notations in the setup of that field. So form return was actually a checkbox field that used to be called discipline drug type detail. I called it form return, and grade change only. That way my users, when they come to this page, know which one of these fields goes with which one of these log types, since they do all show. Let's reload. And so now it says grade change only. So you'd kind of have to train your users on which one of these fields you build out to use for each one of these. But it becomes a great note-taking area for your users. So Patrick, if you're missing this referral or this form return, it just means that you haven't conformed to any of these. And these are some that we just made up in some demonstrations that we've done before. But think about, your user entries. For example, counseling notes. That's one of our biggest uses for it, is counselors want to be able to go in to add their notes onto a student record. So if I have that counseling note and there's something I need to put in here specifically for counseling, then you could again go through here, repurpose one of these fields. Some fields like this date range that I've got hidden right here, I could come in here and say, instead of action date, let's name this transcript request date, submit. And so now, refresh my page. Oh, what did I not do? I didn't unhide it. I got to sort it. Transcript request date now needs to go to, let's see, what was my last one? 44. These are all going to be numerical, so decide which order you want it in. Let's say I make it number 20, put some spaces in there so it's going to become in between those two. Submit this page. Now refresh my little screen on my student menu. And now I have a transcript request date, so that if I'm filling out a transcript request log type, request from AU, and I could put whatever I needed to, blah, blah, blah. This doesn't apply, this doesn't apply, they're not required, so I don't have to put anything in there. And I can say, notice it automatically tags today's date, so I can leave that as is, hit submit. And now I've got a note. So at any time, I can see on this student any of the log entries for which I have security access for. So let's talk about that security access. How does this kind of work with your users once you get used to, okay, I can reformat this page, I can rename these fields, I can, repurpose them for whatever I need them for. Let's talk security. In your security groups, so let's say I go down here to the counselor group, there is a section right here called accessible log types. This is where you give them access to the individual log types on that page. Now, you would actually have to give them page permissions to the log entries page. Once they have access to the log entries page, only these types that you have checkbox here will show up for them on that log entries page. So as a counselor, I want them to be able to look at transcript requests, to look at them and to enter them, and also run reports on them. Counseling area, attendance. Well, maybe I don't want them to have attendance. So maybe that got checked inadvertently and I want to take that off. I can. Parent contact, grade changes, and let's say maybe not discipline. So these are the ones that I want anybody who is a counselor to be able to go in to enter and to view. So you would decide once you create all of your log types, which ones you want them to have access to, submit the page. And when those users, any counselor comes in here, and they go to this screen on a student to hit new, they're only going to be presented with the ones that they have been given access to. So notice that right now I have attendance, counselor, grade change, MTSS, parent contact, and transcript request. If I look, which I'm over here in group 9, sysadmin with DDA, notice I did not see social worker, nurses, parent note, or discipline. It was not an option when I choose those. But if I come over here and go, okay, I want to be able to see social worker, check it, hit submit. Okay, now I'm going to come back into my screen, refresh, and now I can see social worker. Now, one question that people are going to ask is, do they only see the log entries that they create? That answer is no. They are going to see the log entries of anybody in that group. So I think that's very important to know in your use of this. So if I'm a person who has access to counseling notes, I'm going to be able to see any counseling notes entered on any student, regardless of who entered them. Same thing for pulling the report. So you want to be very mindful of that. If you are wanting it to be restricted to one single user, and we have had some districts that want to do that, then my advice is that when you create your log types, create one called Counseling Notes Stacy Royster, Counseling Notes Twin Collins, because maybe those are your two counselors and I only want Stacy to see her notes and I only want Twin to see her notes. That way, when you create them and you go over here into your group, if you have a separate group for each one of those, you could say, because again, you can do it with roles, a tie group to a role. You could say, this one role is only going to have access to counseling notes Stacy Royster, and I can assign that role that's tied to the group with that permission to that one user. So you can restrict it down to a single person. You just have to kind of follow the security flow and use some unorthodox conventions in creating multiple types of log types that would be in the overall list for the district. And remember, the chat is open, so if anybody has any questions on any of this along the way, please feel free to jump in the chat and ask away. How many of you have reconstructed the page so it is more of a note-taking area and you don't see all of those discipline fields in there? If you have conformed it in chat, let me know. I'm just curious at how many are really actively currently using the log entries for various purposes. It was done for me before me, not sure anyone's using it. Yeah, because I did a webinar, I mean, right when I first joined the department back in 22. So some went through and have converted it already. And some, the people converted it, didn't know how it got converted. So it was when we asked for the back to basics, a lot of people asked for the log entries to be shown again because they weren't there when it was set up and they didn't understand how it was set up or how it worked. So I wanted to make sure that I show you, that in this behavior piece, these log types, you can go in at any time and create a new log type. You can go in at any time and adjust these fields, just understanding that these old discipline fields can be repurposed for new fields that are in there for everyone. And so you might have some more uses for it now that you didn't think of back, 3 years ago when we first showed this to everyone and how to convert it. So if you do have people using it, and I said we've got some that are using it for attendance notes. Yep, Carla, I've got some who will use this for their truancy. So like when a letter goes out, they'll put a log entry on there to say we sent home a letter, we called the parent, we did this. They're using it for their truancy tracking. Um, looks like quite a few of you have. Oh, that's what you're doing for it too, Carla? Yep, it's a good one. The other thing about this is once you get these log entries in, there are reports that you can run for them. The caveat to those reports is they run only at the location they were entered. So like if I were to try to come and run these reports at district office, which is where I'm at right now, you go to students and there's this search for log entries up under people. Oh, I like that idea, Linda. Linda says she's using it for enrollment and exclusion forms have been issued. Some people will use it to document things like an affidavit being turned in and things like that to denote dates and stuff. There's all kind of just, you could really disguise the limit for the usage you would want to do for this. So in this people and students and search log entries, again, notice I'm at district office, you're only going to get access to search for logs that are of the types you have security access to. So these are the only ones I have access. If I were to try to go run an attendance log and I've got all these different things that are in there, some of it we don't use. If I could say run it for specific dates or a specific student grade level or for a specific author, you could cull this down however you wanted to, but I'm just going to say show me the attendance log type. If I try to submit, I'm going to get three options. Do you want to just list it? Do you want to print a report? Or do you want to do a quick export of it? I'm just going to list it just to see what comes up. Okay, one's going to come up. Reason that one is coming up is because this one was actually entered from district office. Typically, when you try to run these from district, you're going to get 0 entries every time. Like, let me go back and choose one that I know has some, like transcript request, submit, but I want it to say, oh, I must have done all these. Yep, I did them all from district office. Anyway, you're most of the time going to get 0. You have to run them from the school. So if I swap to the school view, then it's going to show me all of them that have been entered at that school. So if you run it from district office, you're only going to see the ones that are ran at district office, which I don't know, maybe your district folks would use this, but more heavily it's going to be used by the schools. So let me go over here to people, students, and search for log entries at the school level and now choose attendance. So remember when I looked for district office, I had that one on Mickey Mouse. If I run it from here, notice I have a lot of them. And the one for Mickey Mouse I have is in 2024, so it's not the same one that I saw at district office. It does not show here because, again, it's a different location. So there's not a way to run to get, from across all locations. You just kind of have to do it location by location when you're wanting to run these. And at any point in time, if I needed to go back and see what was entered in on there, I would be able to go into that student, click on any of these. And again, I'm only going to see the ones that I have security access to. So if they have some other ones under the nurse's notes, I don't even see those because my security group does not have access. So it's not going to show up in the report and it's not going to show up on the screen for the student. And I could absolutely see anything that was entered during this time. So lots of different flexible options for log entries. Know that they're tied by security group, 2 places to set up, district management. It is listed under behavior. You choose the different types that you would like in the pull down, and that again just helps you to call your security. But the biggest thing is think about these log entry fields. And maybe you've got other things that you want to add in there right now. And sometimes it's like, I want a new drop down screen, a drop down field that gives me X, Y, and Z. then you might just have to, poke around through here until you get to one that allows you to either adjust, like this one is a pop-up menu, so I could repurpose this to get one. But when I come over to one that is something more like a date, like this one right here, it doesn't give me that option to change the entry field to be anything other than the date. So you might have to play around to see which one is one that you can repurpose, but you can unhide, repurpose, and resort any of these that you would need to. The only thing is, any of these that deal with the discipline, that's like discipline only, it doesn't give you the option to hide those. I wish it did, but it doesn't. Um, I could, repurpose it. So this is a pop-up. It won't let me change it to be anything from a pop-up, but if I needed this to be, I don't know, let's say letter sent home. And what are my options that I want it to say? 3-day letter, 5-day letter, 7-day letter. Then now, even though it's got to be there, let me refresh my page. It's at least something that I can use instead of having a random consequence field down there at the bottom that's not going to be used. And I can move it up. So if I don't want it set at the very bottom, I can move this. Let's see. Let's make this number 8. So I move it up some. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong one. Make this number 8. And this one number, let's make it 10. Oh, I got a 10. What was that, 25? I think that's what I had it as. We'll just pick something. Sometimes I like to leave room in between the numbers in case I ever want to insert. I don't have to resort everything. And then refresh the page. And so now my letter sent home is moved up here. And again, you can put in things to say to use with attendance log entries. Because like I said, any of the fields you put down here, they are visible for any of the log types that you see up here at the top. So log entry, not a lot to them, but everybody likes like a little note-taking area inside of here. So does anyone have any questions or anything specific that they want to see on these? It doesn't take long to walk through them, but a lot of people just wanted to re-see that part about those fields, that setup, and how to get those on there. So any questions about the log entries? There is a log entry page as well. Let's see if my Power Teacher. Yeah. There is a log entry page over in the teacher portal as well. So if I log in, it used to be that log entry page is how you could start a discipline referral over on the teacher side. And when you entered it in as a teacher, it would push over to the admin side and they could turn it into an incident. But that no longer works with the new student observation tool inside of there. But the log entry is still in here. So if I were to come to my student information list and I'm looking at my list of kiddos, I click on one, I still have the screens submit log entry. And you could still, you know, it doesn't give you those same drop downs. It's basically just a note taking area for teachers. So test, test, and submit. It it goes there, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go over into discipline. It's not feeding into it because all that comes. So that screen is still there, but it doesn't do anything any longer. So just keep that in mind if you have used it in the past for that kind of entry for your teachers. Now teachers are all using the student observation information. Anyone have any questions on here? If you haven't converted it over, highly recommend, because I guarantee you somebody out there has been asking for a little note-taking area in here, and this is 100% how you want to achieve that. I'm all about finding pieces of PowerSchool to repurpose for more reasonable items that we need to be able to do that might be antiquated that are not used anymore. Any questions from anyone? All right, I don't see anything coming through in the chat. I will go ahead and stop the recording so